I was born to preach the gospel. I was born to preach the gospel. I was born to preach the gospel. And I sure do love my job. Yeah. I was born to preach the gospel. I was born to preach the gospel. I'm born to preach the gospel. And I sure do love my job. Yeah. Yes, I really love my job. I'm a disciple that makes disciples that makes disciples. Oh, I'm a disciple that makes disciples that makes disciples. I'm a disciple that makes disciples that makes disciples. Yes, I'm a disciple that makes disciples that makes disciples. I'm a disciple that makes disciples that makes disciples. I'm a disciple that makes disciples that makes disciples. Get firmly rooted. So let's get firmly rooted. Let's get firmly rooted. So let's get firmly rooted. Oh, I'm a disciple that makes disciples that makes disciples. I'm a disciple that makes disciples that makes disciples. I'm a disciple that makes disciples that makes disciples. Let's get firmly rooted. Firmly rooted. Let's get firmly rooted. Yeshua, 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 Yeshua. I'm a disciple that makes disciples that makes disciples. We are disciples that make disciples that make disciples. We are disciples that make disciples that make disciples. We are disciples that make disciples that make disciples. Let's get firmly rooted. Firmly rooted.
Firmly Rooted family, good morning and happy Monday morning. Pastor Tom Donnelly, Firmly Rooted Ministries. Kimberly's in the house. Vivian's in the house. And Vivian experienced a miracle since yesterday. And so she has gotten some relief in her back and some amazing things. So she was talking to us about that today. We're going to pray with her some more. Cool just to see what God's doing and healing people at Firmly Rooted. It's just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Pamela C., good morning. Steve Giroux, good morning. Steve Ponoworski, good morning. Anne Marie, good morning. Bert Reggiani, good morning. Nikki Chasen, there aren't enough cups of coffee for today. Good morning. But we're going to try to produce as many as possible today. Cindy Siebert, good morning to you and to Izzy. Connie Sandbrink, good morning down at Firmly Rooted Greendale, as well as Roger Fondorf. Good morning. Good morning. Emily Connolly, good morning. Jennifer, good morning. All right. So we're going through the book of Matthew, and this is one of my favorite sections. You know, you start to get into the head of Matthew, a tax collector who's trying to talk to the Jews about Jesus. He's trying to convince them that Jesus is the Messiah of the Old Testament. We went through the genealogy. We went through the messy genealogy. We went through the changing of the Greek word. No longer, you know, it's always been in Hebrew genealogies, the men begat, right? Abraham begat Isaac. Isaac begat Jacob. And in the Greek, it would be agenison, male. But when you get to the birth of Jesus, the Greek word is agenethe, not agenesen, agenethe, which is feminine, which means Mary begot Jesus, not Joseph, which is just a remarkable use of the language to try to get his point across. He talks about the birth of Jesus. He quotes Isaiah about Jesus would be the Messiah. He would be Emmanuel, God with us. The virgin would be with child. And the next thing he does in chapter 2 is record the visit of the Magi. So I want you to grab onto this. He's jumped to Jesus being 2 years old and living back now. You know, they've been living in Bethlehem now for 2 years. No longer in a stable, but probably in an apartment, probably renting out some space. They haven't gone back to Nazareth. 2 years. And he's telling the Jews that the first people that went to go see Jesus were Gentiles, not Jews. Now you say, wait a minute, what about the shepherds? Matthew is intentionally not talking about that part because he wants the Jews to get poked in the eyes a little bit and say, how come you didn't notice the birth of Jesus, but these Magi from hundreds and hundreds of miles away took 2 years to travel to Jerusalem? How did they know and we didn't? And so what he's talking about is the spiritual darkness, the very darkness that John the Baptist was telling them that they needed to repent of. They've created their own kind of Judaism that was absent of God himself, absent of a Messiah. So let's go to these Magi, these wise men. So how did they know that a king was born in Israel? A star. They were scientists and astrologers, and they were looking out at the stars and looking out, and all of a sudden, this strange star appears. And it doesn't move. It stays over the city. But again, why would they associate that with a king in Israel? Well, here's some funny stuff. If you remember, in the 700 BC, Israel was destroyed and taken to Babylon. And many Jews stayed in Babylon. Some went to Persia. And so what I'm trying to tell you is that the scriptures, some of the scriptures worked their way all the way out to the east. And these astrologers, these Magi, added the wisdom literatures and maybe like the book of Isaiah to stuff that they had in their libraries. And all of a sudden, they're realizing that something's happening in the nation of Israel, and that triggers the whole promise of the birth of a son. So listen, they see a star over Jerusalem for 2 years, and nobody in Jerusalem does. Matthew's making a point that they're so spiritually disconnected, they couldn't see a physical star that was above Bethlehem, although these Magi could. And so they come traveling. It says when they get to the city, they assumed that the king would be born in Jerusalem. Bethlehem is just a little bit of ways away. They assume that he's born in the main city, and they get there and they lose sight of the star. The wise men who've been watching this star for 2 years get to Jerusalem, and now they're birthed into or thrown into the darkness, and so they can't see the star. So they go to Herod, who is the king at that moment, and says, where's the the one who is born King of the Jews. We've come from the east and we've come to worship him. Grab that word, worship him. These magi are wanting to worship a king. They know more about this king than any Jew does at this point. They know he's not just an earthly king, but he's a spiritual king, and he is worthy of worship. So God, Matthew is saying to his fellow Jews, how can we be so blind? These magi know more about Jesus than we did. They go into Herod. Herod's all freaked out because now he thinks there's competition. We know later on he asked them about how long ago was it that you saw the star. They said 2 years old, so that's why we know that Jesus is around 2 years old. And the magi finally go to Bethlehem. And as soon as they leave Jerusalem, they can see the star again. They're overjoyed. They see the star again, and they follow that star to Bethlehem. I want you to know that right in between there, Herod didn't know how to answer their question, so he asked some of the Jewish leaders to come to his palace and said, hey, where does your prophecy say the King of the Jews would be born? Where in your prophecies does it say where the Messiah would be born? And they say to Herod, in Micah chapter 5, it says, but you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of my people. Bethlehem. Do you realize that Herod has enough sense to tell the Magi, once you get there, come back and tell me where he is? Now, his purposes are bad. He wants to kill him because he thinks he's competition. But do you know that not one Jewish scholar goes with the wise men to Bethlehem? Like, wouldn't your interest be piqued? Wouldn't you be wondering why these guys traveled for 2 years saying they saw a star that I don't see? I mean, I don't know. If I was one of those religious leaders brought to I think I might just want to follow those guys to Bethlehem. They don't. They're so spiritually blind. They just don't. Upon appearing at the house, they bow down and worship a 2-year-old boy. These magi, these wise men from the east, bow down, fall to the ground in front of a 2-year-old and worship him. And then they gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Many say it's the gifts of a prophet, priest, and king. And then they were warned by a dream not to go back to Herod, but to go back to their homes. And we'll talk about the rest tomorrow, because Herod is going to show the wickedness of demonic hatred, as Satan is going to use Herod to try to destroy this child Jesus, but God's going to protect him. And we'll talk about that more tomorrow morning. So let's see who else joined in. Jackie Matus, good morning. My cousin John Donnelly, good morning. All right, everybody. That's what I have for you. I just think the scriptures just come alive, man, when you start asking the questions like, Matthew, why did you put the Magi in there? And why is that right after the birth of Jesus? And why didn't you mention the shepherds? And all of a sudden, it just starts to explode. All right. Blessings on your day. Make it a firmly rooted day, and may someone see Jesus in us today. Peace.